In this video, we're going to talk about variables in Python, what they are, how to create them, and how to use them. Variables are a named location in memory. Basically, you assign a value to a variable and you use that name to access that location in memory to retrieve that value. A variable is a reference to an object. It's not the object itself, it's just a reference. That object might be a string, a number, a list, a dictionary, or as you'll learn later in the series, you can even create your own. Because Python is a dynamically typed language, the variable type is inferred from the value that's passed into it, not declared at the time of creation. There are rules for naming variables. They can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores. They must start with a letter or an underscore. They cannot contain any spaces. They are case sensitive, and by case sensitive, that means that two variables with the same name, they could both be age, but one is all capitals and one is all lowercase. Python views that as two separate variables, and they cannot contain any Python keywords. Keywords have a special meaning in Python, so when the Python interpreter sees one of these keywords, it expects to be able to do something with it, so it cannot be used as a variable name. Here's a list of the keywords here. Now, because Python is case sensitive, you could use these words. You would just have to change. For example, you could have a variable named false with a lowercase f, or you could do something like my underscore class, or you can make and all capitals. So you can use these words, you just can't use them as you see them here. Here we have some examples of valid, invalid, and bad names for Python variables. Under valid names, we have all lowercase age, age with a number at the end of it, underscore my, underscore age with some mix between capitals and lowercase, and then we have an all uppercase age. Invalid names include names that have spaces in it, so my space age, names that begin with a number, one age, names that have invalid characters such as a dash, my dash age, and names that are Python keywords such as class. Bad names are names that are valid. Python has no problem with them, but they're probably not the best names to choose for your variables. So something like X, Y, Z, A, B, stuff like that, it has no meaning, so you don't really know what it is. Now, if you're doing something that's just like a real quick test, it's not a big deal, but if you do this in production code, or even if you do it in your own code and have to come back to it a week, a month later, and you see this or somebody else sees it, they're going to have no idea what that X is for. So try to use names that are meaningful. Try to avoid using acronyms. So this word here, nod, is actually an acronym that I made up for number of days. And if I did this and a week later, I went back to my code, I might be trying to figure out what NOD stands for. And then also try to avoid abbreviations. The word year is commonly written as YR, but not everybody knows that. And just throwing the S on it for YRS here may make it very difficult to understand that this is supposed to be years. So try to avoid doing bad names like this. Let's jump into Visual Studio Code and practice making some variables. For our first one, we'll give it the name age and then use the equals assignment operator to give it the value of 36. Now, to use a variable, we simply take this name that we gave it and type it somewhere else in the program. So I could type a print function, and instead of passing it a string like we did before, I'm just going to pass it the variable age. So it's not going to print the word age, it's going to print the value that's associated with a variable named age. So when I run this, we'll see down here that we get the output of 36. We could also create a string by typing the name, first name, and using the equals assignment operator to give it the value of Tim. And if I print the first name variable and run that, we'll get the output Tim. Now, one thing that you want to be aware of is that since Python is a dynamically typed language, when you change the value of a variable, you could also change its type. So if I had something like x equals 7 here, and then somewhere along the line, I changed it to x equals, and I made it the string value 7. Now, if I print this, it's not going to be a huge deal. Python's going to know what to do with it. It's going to print and output 7 down here. But let's say that I expected this variable x to be some sort of numeric value, and I changed it to a string value, and then I tried to do some kind of arithmetic on it. So if I tried y equals 5 times X down here after I've changed X to a string, and I try to print Y out, well, because I've changed the value from a numeric type to a string type, I'm not going to get the result that I expect down here. And when I run this, I just get the word 7 printed 5 times in a row. Another example would be if I tried to divide 5 divided by X. When I run it now, I get an error because it's trying to divide the integer 5 by the string 7, and it's an unsupported operand, so it can't do that. So just be aware that when you change the value of a variable that you don't accidentally change the type as well, or if you do change the type that you intended to do so. And now let's just quickly look at some additional ways to assign values to variables. We can actually do this all on one line where we can assign 3 variables 3 different values by typing the variable's name separated by a comma, then the equal sign, and then the 3 values that we want to associate with these 3 variables. So I'll do apple, banana, and coconut for ABC. And then if I go to my print function and I pass it the variables A, B, and C and run it, we'll see down here that it prints out apple, banana, coconut. We can also assign a single value to multiple variables by using successive equal signs. So here I'm going to change this A, B, C to A equals B equals C equals, and then the value that I want to give it. And we'll just make it fish. So now when I print A, B, and C, it's going to be fish, fish, fish. And that's basically it to creating variables. It's just a name, an assignment operator, and a value to associate with the name.